Hello, my name is Fritz, and I'm the Director of Adult Religious Education at St. Philip the Apostle Parish. And in today's session for Friends in Faith, we're going to be talking about humility as a virtue in our lives. When we talk about humility, it goes hand in hand with self-righteousness, which has been a theme in a number of these sessions. And self-righteousness comes quite a bit to us, especially as adults, in our need to show people that we have a control over our lives. We see that as being mature, and as a benefit is showing that kind of control, and actually a lack of humility. However, this is actually a burden that we begin to carry. Do you ever notice that when you recognize that you've been self-righteous, that it's because whatever was a thing that you were doing or discussing has become more than that. It's become an opportunity to teach somebody else a lesson, or to show how you were offended, or perhaps to show how enlightened you are. That's the self-righteousness. And it's a self-righteousness that we think actually lifts ourselves up, but is actually a burden in our lives. Jesus said about self-righteous people in the Gospel of Matthew, "They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them." This comes from pride, and pride is a deadly sin. In fact, it is pride that separates us from God. We may think that we are lifting ourselves up with self-righteousness, but again, we are driving ourselves away. Jesus actually said that in order to enter the kingdom, we need to become childlike. Now, this is not to infantilize us. This is to recognize, as children do, that they are not in control of the world. Children recognize this because they have parents and teachers. There is a wisdom and an understanding and authority that is beyond them. However, as adults, we tend to lose this perception, and we replace it with our own intelligence, our own self-worth, and our own self-righteousness, where in fact, the humility of a child is the antidote to self-righteousness. When we look at a life of humility, it often comes from saying three words that we're really hesitant to say. I don't know. Now, that's a recognition that there is something beyond us. And as self-righteous people, we don't want to accept that. However, in the world, there is plenty that we don't know. Admitting that we don't know something is not a detriment. It's actually an opportunity and to open ourselves to something beyond us. And for us, that should be the will and understanding and love of God. The more that we can trust God with the things that we don't know about our lives, about the world, the less weight actually we put on our shoulders. Saying those three words can actually be life-giving, because when we say those words, we remove ourselves from the self-righteousness of our own intelligence, of our own control. And that means we have a freedom from trying to control other people's lives. Getting over self-righteousness also means that there's a freedom from trying to control God. Humility means acknowledging this one thing: God owes me nothing. God is the righteous one. I'm not. And as we look to answer that question, am I a good person? The good news that we have to keep in mind is that despite these flaws in our character, we are loved anyway. The good news is that God still wants us. And are we humble enough to accept his love? As we move into our discussions, I'd like us to consider 3 questions. First, what are the times in your life where you have been self-righteous? Next, where are the places in your life where you've displayed that pride that separates you from God? Is this at work with colleagues, at home with family, or perhaps with your friends? And finally, what are the ways that we can add humility into our lives as a means of further engaging ourselves with God? Thank you, and God bless.